Okay, so let's go live. Hello, YouTube. We are back again with a recording for the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. So I hope you enjoy the stream. And hello, Paul. Hello, Garrod. Let's see. Oh, there you are. I can see you all on screen now. How's things with everybody? Nobody caught the dreaded COVID?
No.
Ted is not with us once again because he's away working hard. We probably won't see him again until after Christmas, I think. But we survive without him somehow. So is everybody prepared and ready for the show?
Yes, I am.
That's good. Garrod, you all ready?
All good to go. So
and I'm as ready as I will ever be.
So when you want me to count you in, just let me know.
Indeed so. I'm going to record locally as well. Okay, whenever.
Okay, so episode 1, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. You are most welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. You can get in touch with us by sending us an email to info@irishtalkers.com or by leaving a message on our Facebook page, the Talk Show for Talkers. Our website is irishtalkers.com, and you will also find there, apart from links to pretty well every show that we've done over the last 8 years, there is a link called Newspaper, which will take you to our weekly roundup of links from the internet, all about Toastmasters, confidence, leadership, speaking, etc., etc. Everything to do with public speaking. It's well worth a look every now and then. My name is Moira O'Brien, and I'm joined once again by the prolific, sometimes perilous, but always, no, never punitive, let's get it right, and always personable. That's more than 3, I know, far too many. Paul Imani. Paul, you're welcome.
Welcome, listeners. It's a pleasure to be in your company again.
What do we have on the show today? We have our usual word of the week and thought for the week. In part 2, or episode 2, on Saturday, we're bringing you a speech by Craig Valentine. Craig Valentine being the 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking and an amazing speaker. In part 3, Paul is going to be talking about building a judging team. And while we're on the subject of judging, I'm going to be looking in part 4 at the judging criteria. So we'll kick off with the thought for the week. And this week I've gone back in history a little bit to a gentleman called Mark Twain. I've always wondered about that name. That cannot be his original name because, you know, in sailing, good old days of sailing, they would count the depth when they laid out the depth line, the plumb line, and Mark Twain would be marking 2 things of the plumb line. Did you know that? That's just a little bit of history for you. Anyway, Mark Twain said, and I think I should have taken notice of this before I gave you that little story, "It is better to keep your mouth closed and let people think you are a fool than to open it and remove all doubt." It is better to keep your mouth closed and let people think that you are a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. Oh, Paul, that does resonate with me so much.
Well, when I had dinner with Oscar Wilde, he was very fond of that particular quotation. He even told me that he was jealous of it. And he thought that Mark Twain was a smartass who really should stay in America and not allow his phrases to go around the world. Because after my man, the Irishman, went across to America and was told about Mark Twain, Oscar Wilde came back and said he wasn't going back to America because Mark Twain was so darn good that he was unlikely to get any bookings over there. Now, joking apart, I admire that as a wonderful piece of humor. I'm not sure why some world champion in Toastmasters hasn't borrowed it and used it, because you wouldn't be disqualified for citing your sources if you do that properly, and you wouldn't need to 25% of your speech. But what a great quote. And because of the influence of that quotation, Moira, I intend to stay silent during this week's episodes. And that's the show this week, folks. And that was a really excellent piece of silence there. Lest we be confused, I hope all the recordings were turned off, lest we be confused by Mark Twain as being foolish podcasters. Don't you think, Moira? Yes, she really is silenced. And she is deliberately playing on my...
I had my microphone switched off. I wasn't actually intending to be silent. I was coughing, and I switched my microphone off so that I could cough without it being on the recording, and forgot to switch it back on again. So I was totally...
Do you really expect people to believe that?
Well, it was actually true. I could show you if I could move my camera down, but I shan't do that, because I would then be threatening to open my mouth and proving to you how foolish I actually was. Now, would it be pejorative of me to suggest that it's possibly time for me to shut up and pass over to you for your word of the week?
It would not. That is not a good example of pejorative. Pejorative is a word in which you imply something very negative. And to pass over to me it definitely can't be described as a negative experience. Pejorative is a word which describes the act of disparaging or belittling somebody. In fact, I better spell the word, because it's a fairly unusual word, really. I haven't heard it used by a world champion speaker in Toastmasters. Or, in fact, our district speech winner didn't use it either. Pejorative. Pejorative. And it's a noun, it's a word or a phrase that has negative connotations. So I guess you would say that the person was inclined to speak out of the side of his mouth. That, Moira, wouldn't that have a negative connotation?
Yes, I guess so. I was trying to speak out of the side of my mouth, and I found it rather difficult But I was slanted, so maybe that would make up for it, Paul.
Well, the key thing is that in English language, there are many phrases which can be taken either literally or metaphorically. So I can tell you that if you say about somebody that they spoke out of both sides of their mouth, that would be somebody who both speaks the truth and untruths mixed up together. Now, it also is an adjective. So you can speak about, that was a pejorative remark you made. Disparaging. So to disparage somebody, to put them down, to be contemptuous of them, to be scornful of them, be uncomplimentary. Disparaging is a handy word. And if you need to add other words that are kind of synonyms of it, you can put in derisory. That was a derisory remark. That was a pejorative remark. They all have their own precise meanings. But you behaved in, you demeaned that person. That means you treated that person in a pejorative manner. So pejorative there now. It'll wake your audience up when you're speaking. And if you were about to start your evaluation, you could say, in some situations, I'm going to say nothing pejorative about the speech we've just heard. Then you can see the grammarian scribbling like mad, wondering if they know how to spell the word pejorative, but definitely going to compliment you for having used a fresh phrase later on. Wouldn't you say, Moira, if you were the grammarian, you would make some complimentary remarks about somebody who used the word pejorative?
I would. It's a nice word because it covers so many bases all in one word. If you look at the synonyms that the dictionary gives you, and there's lots of them, debasing, deprecatory, depreciatory, derisive, derogatory, detracting, detractive, disparaging, irreverent, rude, slighting, uncomplimentary, unpleasant. It sort of covers all those in one word. So from that point of view, I think it's a very useful word. It's certainly a word that is in my lexicon, even though I don't think I will have used it in action for, over the past 10 years.
You haven't taken it out of your lexicon and brought it into the fresh light of day.
That's correct. That is correct. But now I have it again, I will keep it in the forefront of my lexicon and maybe try to use it.
Will you be going around making pejorative remarks in future then?
Well, I do that all the time anyway, Paul, so nothing's new there. But there we are.
So long as you don't introduce me next week as here comes personable and pejorative Paul.
I was already thinking of that, Paul, so maybe you put it back in my mind. Let's bring this episode to a close before we get accused of being too rude. I'll invite you to join us again tomorrow when we're going to be listening to a speech made by the 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking, Craig Valentine. I'll see you then. Okay, folks. That was episode 1.
Good.
All done. There were a few long pauses now.
Few surprises along the way.
Yes, well, I was very quiet, wasn't I, at one time? Not intentionally. I don't know. I have this very useful button on my desk in front of me which kills my microphone. And it's very useful when I do have to clear my throat, which I have to do frequently, sadly. Because once upon a time, for 40 odd years or so, I was a smoker. And it's left me with slightly damaged lungs. So I'm doing that all the time. One of the worst things you can do as a speaker is have something like this coming up every minute or so into your speech. And I tell you, when you suffer like what I do, it can be exceedingly difficult to avoid. Anyway, that is neither here nor by the by. Oh, we're well into the...
I'd say you're 10 times more.
10 times more what?
I'd say you're 10 times more conscious of that.
Oh, I am
I'd say you're 10 times more conscious
I am
than
very
anybody
conscious.
else.
Yeah, but...
Have we got a time lag or something?
Probably. I think my internet is saying that it's unstable.
You're okay, Paul, on my side.
It says my internet is unstable, but I have to say that I have a very, very decent internet speed, so I don't know why it's unstable. Possibly I could log off.
It doesn't matter because you're recording.
Yes, okay.
I think there's a little bit of noise in the back of your audio as well.
Is there?
Possibly to do with the bandwidth.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hearing just little stutters of noise independently in there.
Possibly.
Not a great amount or anything, but...
No. Okay. Well, let's press on.
Well, if Geroid says he heard something, I don't think you can really say possibly, because his hearing is not bad, Moira.
Well, that's true. Unlike us who have to wear hearing aids.
Speak for yourself.
These are hearing aids.
Well, that's true. Garrod is pointing to his headphones, which neither I nor Paul are actually wearing today. I usually do wear my headphones, but because I can then cut my speakers and it gives a slightly better sound. In fact, I might go back and do that again. It does improve my sound quality.
In fact, I'm writing to Santa Claus to get another pair from my other desktop.
Yeah? Okay.
And they're great ear warmers, these.
Yeah, I can see. Okay, let's press on.
I have. That's the cause of the problem. I have 91 upload and 18 download. Sorry, 91 download and 18 upload as my speed.
Well, that's fairly normal.
You okay?
Yeah. I reckon that I'm probably syncing files to Google. That's probably the problem. Aha. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to change the location of this file. Save as to a local file because it's constantly uploading to Google, and that's not a good thing. Stick to the downloads. Save. Okay, that might help a bit. One of the beauties of modern computing is that you can have constant constant backup to a cloud server, which is wonderful because you don't have to think about backing up. But on the other hand, if you're trying to do something online, it can slow you down like there's no tomorrow. So have I improved at all? I see you nodding.
Sound is fine.
And not too much of a lag?
Your picture is frozen for a while there.
Really?
It's moved again. It's your picture. Your picture is...
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Let's see, it's Dropbox.
Paul, you're on mute, Paul.
Does it matter since we're recording on 2 different channels?
It shouldn't do. I'm trying to kill
The audio.
I'm trying to kill the synchronization. Move to bin, and delete.
I'm just going for a glass of water. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, Paul? Yep.
Well, that's interesting.
So, what way will we intro to episode 2? Are we going to play the example back?
Yeah, I think so. Error list.
Okay.
That's okay.
And then
Now, how can Google be uploading a file which I've just deleted? It's ridiculous. I've deleted the file, and yet Google is still uploading it. Weird.
Google. And there should be a cancel on the bottom right if you're uploading to Google.
No, it didn't work.
OneDrive.
I'm on Google Drive, but it did. Anyway, it stopped now, so and my internet activity has reduced substantially. And the file is saved locally now, so it should be better.
Wait, you're moving.
I'm moving. Oh, I'm moving. Wonderful.
Oh, no, not again. Yeah, but it's like...
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, of course, I'm recording locally for the YouTube stream, and I'm getting myself at full speed. Of course, we are uploading to YouTube as well, which would slow us down a little bit. Maybe that's...
Is it possible to carry on?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah,
well, we were waiting for you anyway.
Okay. Well, when you're ready, will I count you in then?
Count me in.
Intro to episode
wait a
2.
minute. I'm going to record locally as well in my Audacity. If nothing else, it allows me to keep an eye on time. Okay, far away.
Okay, so when you're ready, 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends, to episode 2 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. Now, I'm delighted this week to bring you a speech made by Craig Valentine. Craig Valentine was the 1999 world champion of public speaking, and he's turned himself into a really good public speaking trainer, coach, and general information source. Well worthwhile looking up his website if you have the opportunity, and even better to sign up for his 50 public speaking tips, which if you sign up for it, you get 1 email every week for 50 weeks. So it's a whole year. And they're really, really good. So let's listen to this speech, and we'll come back afterwards and maybe have a few comments to make about it.
Line up your speech. Will I line up your speech, or have you got it on share, Laura?
I have it here. If you want, I shall play it. Hold on, let me share the screen.
Well, I have it here, actually.
That's no good if I share screen. No, I don't need to share screen anyway. Just play the damn thing.
I think I have it.
Well, I have it here. So.
I know it sounds strange, but first of all, I want to thank you for my name tag. It might not mean much to you, but when I was in Vancouver, I don't know how big they thought I was, but they gave me a name tag that hung down here. Now, I don't care how confident of an individual you thought you were. You're going to be somewhat self-conscious if all weekend long people come up to you and say, "Hey, Craig, how you doing?" But you hear the accolades, all these accolades, all these. You know, with all these accolades, people still don't like me. You know why they don't like me? Because I joined Toastmasters in March of 1998, got my CTM in March of 1999, and won the World Championship in August of 1999 in my very first try. Now you clap, but can you feel the haters in the room? No, because people come up to me all the time, "Craig, you don't even know what it feels like to lose a contest." Oh, yes, I do. See, I lost the humorous speech contest at the club level. Thank you, Edie, for laughing at my misery. And I'll never forget a seasoned Toastmaster named Alan Mish came up to me afterwards. He said, "Craig, you can win the World Championship of Public Speaking." I said, "What are you talking about? I just lost the humorous speech contest at the club level." He said, "That's okay. The only thing wrong with your humorous speech was that it wasn't funny." Oh, yeah. Hey, have you ever given a speech you wish you could take back? That will happen much less often after the end of this program today. But who even wants to be the world champion anyway? I saw that. You do? Well, a lot of hands went up. I saw a lot of people up here, a lot of contestants. Let me just warn you, being the world champion is a blessing and a curse. Imagine this, I'm in the Chicago airport 2 days after I won the world championship. If you had been walking towards me, you would have seen my wife on one side and me holding this big, gigantic crystal trophy, just walking through the Chicago airport. And all eyes were on me. People are looking at me like, "Who is that? Is that Denzel Washington?" Blair Underwood? Flavor Flav? But this is how I knew my life would change, because this petite lady runs up to me and she starts reading the trophy. 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking. Say some things. I have no idea how I responded, but I know one thing. Everywhere I go in the world now, it's always, "Craig, say some things." I went to the Bahamas recently. I attended a church service. They said, "Would you like to say some things?" Wherever I go. So you know what? I had to learn not to get ready to speak, but to stay ready to speak. And by the end of this program, you'll know how to stay ready to speak rather than so that you can take advantage of every speaking opportunity anytime you can. Okay? So when I was in prison, visiting, to clarify that, an inmate came up after my presentation. He said, "Craig, getting out of here in a few months, man. I'm feeling good about life, and I'm back on the right track." But you know, there's a quote by Will Rogers who says you might be on the right track, but if you just stand there, what's going to happen? So I left that day thinking, well, I'm glad he's back on the right track, but maybe I'm standing still as a speaker. Have you ever wondered that? Yes, dear. I'm learning too, bro. So I decided to call up this lady who was supposed to be one of the best public speaking coaches in the country. And I said, "Listen, I need a coach, and I need to be coached by you." She was British. She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I did my research. I know you're the one I want to coach me." She said, "Do you know how much I charge?" I said, "It doesn't matter." She said, "Great. That's a wonderful attitude. That's fantastic. That will be $4,000 per day." I said, "I'm pretty happy with the skills that I have." But you know, so often in life we look at the price of doing something and we don't look at the cost of not. So I decided to do it. I went out there and I got coached by her, and just 20 miles off of the Las Vegas Strip, in the Suncoast Casino, I'll never forget it, room 437, overlooking these beautiful, majestic mountains, this wonderful plush green golf course. I spent 2 full days trapped in a room with the best public speaking coach in the United States. Her name is Ms. Patricia Fripp. FRIPP.com. Go there, get something, tell her I sent you. She is the absolute best. But here's what I came to realize. Even though I was the world champion, what got me here won't get me there. I was nowhere near where I needed to be as a speaker. So as Marshall Goldsmith has later coined, what got you here won't get you there. It always takes new tools, new strategies, new techniques, and new ways. And in the next 40 minutes, you're going to pick up strategies to keep your audiences on the edge of their seats. If you look at your handout, you'll see you'll first pick up strategies on how you can breathe life into a speech and make your audience come alive. Then you'll pick up tools on how you can bring the audience to you and keep them engaged at all times and hopefully awake. And third, you'll pick up tools on how you can build a message that sticks so that people will rehire you time and time again.
That's it.
So can we talk about it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when you're ready then.
That's the
Are
promise.
you ready?
No, give me just a second or two.
Not recording the remark, so can we talk about it? Okay.
No. I'm just updating my local Audacity that I've just boobed. Oh, it doesn't matter. Come on. X. Delete. Paste. Okay. I was ready.
That's like 2 to 4 minutes. Sorry, I said 4 to 6. 2 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
when you're ready, 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, I hope you got something out of that speech. I certainly did. I've heard this speech many times and the stories it tells many times, but it doesn't matter. Every time I hear them, I take something away. Now, there are a couple of things that I picked up, Paul, on this. Obviously, one needs to see the initial thing, the name tag gag. The name tag, of course, was hanging around the top of his legs, let's say. That's what made that funny. And obviously there was quite a lot of visual joke within that because Craig has a very mobile face, let's say, let's put it that way. And he's quite amusing to watch. But there are a couple of things that I picked up on. He asked a question of the audience and he actually had the audience give him the answer. Now, we don't tend to do that in Toastmasters. I guess the online format doesn't help that at all, which is a shame because it would be great if it did. But certainly when we go back to giving speeches face-to-face, we can use that technique. We can actually go into the audience and try to get the audience to respond to us. And he was also reacting to the comments that he got back from the audience. And that deepened his connection with the audience, in my mind. He also had a promise to the audience of what he was going to be, or what they were going to get, not what he was going to give, but what they were going to get out of his seminar. And this was, I guess, a Toastmasters seminar of sorts, or Toastmasters conference. So those are the things that I particularly picked up on. There was one foundational phrase that he repeated in 2 different ways. What got me here won't get me there. That's a good example of a foundational phrase. It has a bit of rhythm and it is less than 10 words. Paul, your thoughts?
Listeners, you've just heard a speech which will help take you to a different level as a speaker. You've just heard a man say, you're going to be self-confident, you know why, you clap. If you listen back to the beginning of his speech, you will notice how many times he talks directly to the audience by beginning each single sentence with the word you. He then shifts into a period of the speech, and I counted it, in which there's a fairly even distribution between the use of the word you and the use of the word I. Then he goes back into a whole series of you'll pick, a whole series of yous again. So take that with you out of this speech. Begin your next speech with a whole lot of yous, no I at all. Then mix the two together and then come back to a series of yous, and you are going to win best speaker in your club, best speaker in your area, your division and your district. I guarantee you, you are guaranteed to achieve that. Thank you.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Paul. Make your speeches you-focused. That's actually one of Craig Valentine's mottos, mantras. Make your speech you-focused, you being the audience, and you will be so much better. Well, that brings us to the end of... Hardly any Toastmaster I've ever heard does that at a club meeting. Hardly any. And it's not included in big enough capital letters in any of the Toastmasters educational material, in my memory. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. So bear that in mind, Toastmasters. You've just been given the clue to winning your club competitions every time. Let's call this episode to a close, and we'll see you again tomorrow, where we will be looking at an aspect of contest, but this time it's going to be how you can build a judging team. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye for now. Okay, that's episode 2 done. Let's move swiftly on to episode 3.
Just a tiny point, Moira.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just checking to see what I did say. Was the...
You said building a judging team. That was your title.
I didn't say how to do it.
That's true. You said building a judging team. I put the how in.
It makes a massive difference to what I'm going to do.
Okay, well...
Never mind. It doesn't matter.
Garrett, you can take how out in the edit.
Hardly anybody will notice.
Okay. I will introduce it anyway as just building a judging team.
Nerdy people notice things like that.
Yep.
And
you're nerdy, is that it?
I am when it comes to language, yeah. That's about the new thing I am. You should see more.
Him, a nerd.
I'm not a cleaner.
Yep. Are you ready, Paul?
Episode 3.
I've got all my notes.
Good.
I'm really ready for this one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that.
So who's leading in, Moira?
Yeah, I'll breathe in.
Okay. Right. So when you're ready, it's 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, Toastmasters, to episode 3 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. A quick reminder that our email address is info@irishtalkers.com, and our website is it's not the Talk Show for Talkers. I wish it was. We couldn't get that though. It's irishtalkers.com, and you can find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers. Right, it's that time when I pass the gavel over to Paul Imani. And Paul, as a slight correction to what I said at the end of the last episode, is not going to talk about how to build a judging team, but he's going to talk about building a judging team. Over to you, Paul.
It's better to have a team of judges than a collection of isolated, independent, non-collaborative individuals scattered around the globe. I'm going to speak entirely within the assumption that we are all now used to having online judging. I think it's quite a radical idea, isn't it, to talk about the judges for a speech contest as a team. It's not at all radical to talk about the Zoom master, the contest chair, and the chief judge, and the sergeant at arms, and the timer as a team. But to think of the judges as a team, ooh, that is quite a radical idea. What on earth is the reason why you might like to consider the judges you appoint as a team? You can see immediately that I'm talking to chief judges, because chief judges are the people who are responsible for appointing judges. They may delegate this responsibility to somebody else, but the rules, competitive rules, are that the chief judge will appoint the judges. Ultimately, the worst thing that can happen in a contest is that a group of people have to gather together in a breakout room and consider a protest and end up squabbling with each other about whether somebody has or hasn't broken a rule. This is every chief judge's nightmare. And a good chief judge will always be working back from how can I avoid the nightmare scenario, and hope that they never have that experience. That, more than anything else, is probably the reason why you deserve to think about building a team. What are the opportunities you have as a chief judge to build a team? The first opportunity you have is if you decide to set up a WhatsApp group for the judges. You set up a WhatsApp group for the judges, and that is an opportunity for you to foster a certain type of spirit, collegiality, cooperation, collaboration. Chief judge has an opportunity to move people along in a way that they will feel good about each other, that they will feel committed to the task of being a judge, and that they'll be pleased to be a judge, and that they'll be pleased that they have this particular chief judge. Really important. Any of you have had the experience of feeling as a chief judge that none of the judges like you will know what I mean. Thank goodness I haven't had that experience. But anyway, so there's the WhatsApp group beforehand. Then there's the email that you send out as chief judge to the judges. That email contains a number of documents. I won't go into the details because those of you who are chief judges already know, but this isn't a technical instruction podcast episode. The email, how it's phrased. There really isn't any point in expecting people to behave as a team unless you treat them as a team. Is there? Pretty clear. Then you have another opportunity to build teamwork. And that's when the chief judge briefs the judges. There are a whole load of ways I could recommend to you, but the most obvious one is to get people to introduce themselves to each other. How can you feel that you're a member of a team if you don't know who the other people are, where they come from, what their clubs are? You know absolutely nothing about them. They might as well be robots in that case. So there's a third opportunity to build a team. Another opportunity? Well, let's fast forward. in back to the WhatsApp group where the judges have an opportunity to clarify any points that they're just a bit unsure about in the WhatsApp group before the day of the contest. Then you go into the day of the contest. The judges arrive. On Zoom, there is the private chat. The chief judge saying, "Good to see you there, John. Thanks for being in on time. Great to see John, Henry, Michael, Mary, Petula, and Veronica. Great to see you guys." There's the issue then about sending the ballots, getting the ballots communicated, and getting the judges to do that efficiently. Teams and individuals are much more efficient when they're within a team because they feel that they will let the team down if they faff around, lose their ballot, do something wrong, leave the meeting, and cause all sorts of difficulties for the other members of the team. And now we're coming to the big one, the one you've always been afraid of, quite rightly, the protest. The judges are in a room, and cooperation is the name of the game, isn't it? You want, as chief judge, the judges to respectfully collaborate with each other because they're being expected to reach a point where they will concur. Ideally, you want all the judges to agree. If they're not getting on well with each other, the possibility is that they might not concur, just to be uncooperative because they haven't enjoyed the experience. Think about this. These are human beings. These are not robots that have been programmed to be necessarily terribly cooperative with each other. You've built the team. That's the idea. You are the person who has fostered everything. Everyone will take the lead from you. It's also a terrific opportunity for you to practice team leadership. Team leadership, very important issue. And you could even, I imagine, find a way of turning it into a high-performance leadership project. You could even produce a little booklet, couldn't you, on how to build teams based on your experience. There's one huge thing that's also possible, and I have to mention it. One of the great advantages of being a judge in a contest is that you meet people you don't know. You meet people perhaps from the other side of the world, from the other side of your country. Gives you a terrific opportunity to do conventional networking, inviting them to your club, being invited to their club, developing a good sense of rapport, knowing that you can reach out to somebody again, building friendships. Good teams develop friendship. A whole lot of separated individuals are very unlikely to become friendly with each other. They'll do the mechanics. And, many times they'll do the mechanics correctly. They'll do everything technically, but they won't be left with any good memory of the experience of being in that team. And they're pretty likely to forget who else was a judge. And they might even forget who was the chief judge. So it's your opportunity to be a leader. It's tailor-made for teamwork and not for a whole load of isolated individuals to do a job. Moira, what are you thinking about the concept of judges as a team?
I'm thinking, Paul, that there are, whilst I love most of what you've said, I can see a slight danger in that if your judging team gets too cozy together, they might be tempted to collaborate in their ideas about judging. And you do want to keep the judges judging to be individual to that judge. And of course, we are not permitted as judges to discuss anything with anybody else, let alone another judge.
Now that's a very good challenge. You have really put your finger on an important issue there. A group of judges ought to use similar criteria.
Agreed.
There is a list of criteria provided to judges, and part of the way of building a team is to discuss with the judges. Moira's going to say something about that tomorrow, but it gives yet another opportunity for team building by the chief judge. The worst thing that could possibly happen is that if all the judges become a team and they all directly or indirectly decide they don't like the chief judge, they could become a very difficult group to lead. But I tell you what, have an experiment. The next time you're chief judge, see what it's like if you have the idea in your head that I'm going to do my best to mold this disparate group into a team that is to win the prize of being a super group of judges.
Well done, Paul. We'll bring the episode to a close now, and I'm going to look forward to going over with you tomorrow the criteria for judging, because that, I think, is a very important thing that we really ought to understand as judges. So we'll see you then. Right. What I didn't do was to get the judge's sheet on my screen. Right, humorous speech, that'll do. That's very interesting. I seem to have lost the judge's sheet. Is that it?
Tell you what, while you're looking for it, I'll go and get a cup of tea.
Yeah, it's called a ballot. That's why I couldn't find it. It's a strange title for it.
Judge's
ballot. Yeah.
Ballot.
Yeah. And I can find the table topics one. I can't find the...
I might have it.
I'm sure I have. I because every time you are a judge, you get sent it. Contest ballot. There it is. No, it's table topics. International speech. That's the one. Tally, record sheet, contest ballot. Here we go. That's it. Okay. All right, where am I going to put this? There. And I have to say that I do have a look at this every single time I'm a judge, because it's not that straightforward and it's not that easy.
Well, I get nervous in between contests. Like
Yeah?
there's the off season. So when you come back, you say, I always question my abilities to judge
It
until...
it
and
isn't.
so-
It isn't easy. It isn't easy at all.
So by refreshing myself with that particular guidelines and criteria, then I think, you're doing two things. You're educating yourself or you're keeping your skills sharp. And then you're being fair on the contestants that you're going to give the respect, give them the respect and the credit they deserve.
Yeah, I agree. I have, of course, come across many, many judges over the years who basically pay absolutely no attention to the judging criteria whatsoever. And all they do is they say, do I like this speech? No, I don't like it as much as that one. And they just do that. They just grade them according to how they feel. And you can't actually criticize that as a method of judging, even though it may not result in the same result as going through the judging criteria in detail. But I do find it very hard. You have to do it comparatively, but by breaking it down into the criteria, the individual criteria pieces, and you weigh those individual pieces, say, is this one better than that one?
Yeah.
Then you're getting a better overall view. That's the sort of thing I want to bring up in the episode. Go on,
but
Paul.
I also find it strange that Toastmasters, even though they say you've got your guidelines and you got the certain topics to mark on, they say it's not necessary to go by it.
Yeah.
But I've always stuck with it. I think it's there for a reason. It's handy, help you tally.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Okay, so where in the event maybe you're very, very close, then it may come down to...
I agree. Yes, and very often you do get ones which are within 1 point of each other. And then I always go back and I look at, if they're very close, the scores are very close, then I go back and I look at them and I try to find something that stood out about one or other person, which will lift them above.
Yeah. And sometimes, you might get it, if you might call it wrong, but if you went then in that case with your heart, you're still doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because each person may have a slightly different opinion, or the effect that speech had on you. You might take away something different, or your feelings.
Yeah. Yep. Come on, Paul. This is a long time. Oh, he's back.
He went to his local Circle K, was it, or Centra?
If I'd known you were going to be so long, Paul, I would have gone and got myself one. Okay, let's press on.
I'd known you were going to be so fast, I wouldn't have left.
Oh, we had a useful conversation. Right, Paul, you're going to be bringing us in.
Oh, yes.
Are you okay, Paul?
I think I am, yes.
Okay. So when you're ready, it's 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, listeners. Welcome, Toastmasters. Welcome, intending Toastmasters and people who've never heard of Toastmasters ever before in their life. You're very welcome to this episode of the Talk Show for Talkers, available to download as Irish Talkers. Today, in this episode, let me introduce to you Moira O'Brien, distinguished Toastmasters Moira O'Brien, who I believe is going to say something about the criteria. And I know you know what the criteria are. They're the criteria for judging speech contests. Moira O'Brien, what do you know about criteria for speech contests?
Thank you, Paul, for that introduction. What I do know about the criteria for speech contests is that not every judge uses them. And that's actually not wrong, because whilst Toastmasters give us the criteria, they don't say, as I think possibly they should do, they don't say that you must use the criteria to judge. They just say, we recommend it. I recommend it highly, because if all the judges are using the same criteria to judge the speeches, you are more likely to get the same result or a similar result, a better result, let's say. So let's take a look at what the judging criteria are for a speech. Now, there are individual criterions for table topics and for evaluations, but we will leave those aside for today, and we'll just look at the one for speeches. And it's the same for both the humorous speech and the international speech and any other form of speech. So it's divided up into 50% for content, 30% for delivery, and 20% for language. So that gives you the weight, if you like, that Toastmasters is going to put. 50% of it is in the content. What exactly is being said and how it's being said. What is being said. How it's being said is the delivery. That's 30% of that. So delivery is not as important as the content. And that's something which you do have to bear in mind. Content is king in Toastmasters International's view. And language, the actual words you use, these are the least important. There's only 20% given to that. Okay, let's look at the individual sections. In content, there are 3 specific items: speech development, speech effectiveness, and speech value. What's the difference between effectiveness and value? Well, effectiveness is measured in part by the audience's reception of the speech, but it's also very subjective. It's how the speech came over to you. Speech value, according to Toastmasters International, justifies the act of speaking. The speaker has a responsibility to say something meaningful and original to the audience. So from that point of view, if you're not being original, your speech doesn't have value, or doesn't have as much value. The ideas should be important ones, although this does not preclude a humorous presentation of them. That's, I think, quite a difficult thing to judge. So maybe I would put a bit less weight to that than the first 2. In terms of score, speech development is the most important thing, and you're scoring out of 20. Structure, organization, and support material. Your effectiveness and your speech value both have the same 15 marks to each. So your effectiveness on the score sheet says achievement of purpose, interest, and reception, and your speech value has ideas, logic, and original thought. So they give you fairly easy, fairly sensible single word ideas that you can get into your brain to enable you to allocate a score. And they suggest 4 different bands. Excellent, which is maximum score. Very good, which is the top third. Good, middle third. And fair, the bottom third. Okay, let's move on to the next item, delivery. Again, split it into 3 sections. As I said, 30% of the overall score. Now, the 3 sections are physical, voice, and manner. I quite like these 3 distinctions. Physical is the appearance, the body language, the expressions, the body positioning, how you make use of the stage. These are the key things that determine the physical presentation. The voice, of course, is quite easy. It's how well you use the voice in terms of pitch, in terms of tone, in terms of speed and pace, and how well and how clearly you are heard, how well you enunciate. And thirdly, manner is the indirect revelation of the speaker's real self as the speech is delivered. Enthusiasm, assurance, interest in the audience, confidence in their reactions. These are the key words that Toastmasters gives us. And again, on the score sheet, there are single word, well, body language is 2 words and speaking area is 2 words, but you know what I mean. So physical, appearance, body language, speaking area, voice, flexibility and volume, manner, directness, assurance, enthusiasm. So we've got a lot of different things to listen for when we are judging a speech. And we still have one more section to go, and that is the language. 20%, the smallest section. And there are only 2 items here. First one is appropriateness. And this relates to the choice of words that you use in order to achieve the purpose of the speech, but also the choice of words for your particular audience. As we know, we should be adjusting everything to be appropriate to the audience who's receiving the speech. So language should promote clear understanding of thoughts and should fit the occasion precisely. And the second item is correctness of language. And this is grammar and pronunciation. And this helps to show that the speaker is the master of the words that they're using. Again, the items on the score sheets to give you prompts are appropriateness to speech purpose and to audience, and there's 10 points for that. Correctness of grammar, pronunciation of word selection, and there's 10 points for that. And the total added up comes to 100 points, 100 possible points. So how on earth do you keep all of these things in your mind as you're listening to the speech? Oh, it's jolly difficult, isn't it? So what is the best way of doing it? In my mind, when I'm judging, I try to not pay too much attention to the score sheet during the speech, because that's going to take your attention away from the speaker. And you do need to be watching and listening to the speaker right the way through the speech. When the speech is over, you have that 1 minute, which in my mind is never enough to give proper consideration to the speech, but that's all we're given. I go through each item and I try to give a score which is relative to previous speakers. That doesn't mean to say that if you thought somebody was superb, the first speaker was superb, that you should actually give the top marks for any of the items to that one speaker. Because there might be another speaker who is even more superb. So an idea is to give relatively good marks if you think that the speaker is good, but not the top marks. Give yourself room to mark somebody else, or if you have 6 or 7 speakers, you might only give your first speaker, say, 13 out of 20, so you've got another 7 scores that you can give above that speaker. And then the next speaker comes up and you grade that speaker in relation to the previous speaker, and so on, and so on, and so on. And at the end, if you've done that on each of your categories and you've done it reasonably conscientiously, you will come up with a good idea of how you should be grading those speeches. But what happens if you end up with identical scores at the bottom? And believe me, this happens frequently, in my opinion. Because very often we will get out of, let's say, 6 or 8 speeches, you'll get 2 or 3 which you like equally. And you may mark them up on one thing and down on another, and the reverse on the other speaker. But you quite frequently pick up speakers, 2 speakers, or maybe even 3, who have very, very close scores, let's say within 1 point of each other. Should you just say, well, if Joe Bloggs has got 84 and Jane has got 83, that you automatically put Joe as the winner? No. I would say that you go back and you look at them individually and you make a conscious judgment between the 2, which overall you thought were the better. What was the one thing that really stood out for you with that speaker? And that's where I would say you use your judgment away from the score sheet, because you've scored them so close, 1 or at the most 2 points apart means that really there's very little to choose between them. So that's a brief run through on the judging criteria and the judging items. I think it helps. I think it could be improved. Maybe Toastmasters International might improve it. Who knows? But I do recommend to you that you do make a conscious effort to use the score sheet. Paul, do you have any comments before we wrap?
Oh, I have one very big comment to make. That was very thought-provoking. I'm sure that our listeners, you will be able to compare what you have done in the past with what Moira has done in the past, and everyone will be more aware of how they're going to do it in future as a result of this episode.
Good. I'm glad it came over well, Paul. So that's it. That's us for another week. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week when we'll have another 4, hopefully thought-provoking episodes. So from myself, Moira O'Brien, and from
Paul O'Mahony, thank you, listeners.
We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Very controversial, I might say.
Good.
Very
Good.
controversial. Will be, of course, we won't get any feedback.
I know.
No, we won't get any comments. However, it food for thought, since I'm briefing judges at 6:30.
Yep. Well, that's it for us this week. So we'll say goodbye to YouTube, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.